Hello, welcome to the hands-on 2 video walkthrough. I'm gonna walk through how to do this hands-on. It's pretty awesome. Just to preface though, this hands-on was fairly long and pretty difficult, but it's still good practice. It could help conceptually. So I recommend going through this again after this walkthrough to see if you can do it again yourself. And you know what? Try explaining it to a friend to catch any points you may still not understand. Cool. So right now we're on the web page. As you can see, honestly, it doesn't look very good yet, and that may be because for a certain reason, that is that we haven't linked our HTML file to our CSS file. Step 1, linking our files. So HTML is our structure, our skeleton, but CSS provides us that really nice, that good style that we want to see. So we link these for communication purposes. HTML tells CSS, hey, I've got this thing here, let's say called ID equals potato. Can you dress it up real nice? And CSS responds with, heck yeah, I've got just the thing, it's called hashtag potato. And then they find each other because they parallel each other. ID for hashtag, class for dot. Always remember that we use IDs for one element. Think ID is my identity. Hashtag identity belongs to one person, just like an Insta or Twitter account belongs to one person. Classes use dots, which are periods, and these can apply to many elements. Think back to high school or middle school. You most likely had several classes called periods, so hopefully that analogy works. Anyway, enough with this talk. Let's link our files. So the first thing you should do is make sure that your href is using the correct relative path. So right here is where we're going to link it in the head of our HTML document. Link. Sorry, I'm actually a pretty slow typer. Now, you don't actually need to remember this if you can. It's pretty long. It's gruesome. You can always review the lecture slides or online assets. So we're going to take a look at it's going to go from assets to CSS to style.css because that is our workspace that we're using. Cool. So quick save that. Now if we go back to our sick page, all right, wow, that's a whole lot different just because we linked the file. That's pretty dope. Cool. So let's take a look at step 2. Yeah, much better. Playing with pseudo selectors. Pseudo selectors are really cool because they allow us to put our elements in a special temporary state. All right. A pseudo class would be something like :hover, while a pseudo selector is the entire selector, which is selecting an element in a temporary specific state. This would be something like div :hover. Cool. So in the instructions, let's start with getting a responsive navbar. Currently, if you place your cursor over the navbar options, nothing happens. Let's see that. That's true. It just kind of turns into this little text-looking thing. All right. Add the appropriate pseudo class to nav element so that when the cursor is over a part of the navbar, we can eventually make something happen once the properties are added correctly in CSS. So this, to me, this kind of sounds like a hover pseudo class. So let's add that to nav element. All right. So as you see, that was our mistake in creating the file. It's actually already there. So all right. First part of step 2 done immediately. You see, the pseudo selector is already done for us. Awesome. Whoops. Okay. So let's read on. Now add a property to the pseudo selector so that the navbar elements are underlined when the cursor is over it. So this temporary state in which we have nav element, we want to have it underlined. So that would be the text decoration property. Text decoration. And we're going to have it be underlined. Cool. Yeah. Don't worry if you couldn't think of this immediately, the actual text declaration property, you can easily access these kind of properties from online sources. It's something you don't necessarily need to memorize, but as you practice more in your web development, you'll begin to add to your vocabulary, and you won't have to reference these any longer. Cool. So let's just save that and go to our WDD page. Awesome. Refresh. Oh, look at that. Oh, underlined. Looks good. But you know what? It's still kind of weird that we have this, our pointer, our cursor is a weird, a text cursor, but we don't want that. We want to show the users that it's a pointer. So we're going to actually add, I think that's the next step, right? Change the property of the cursor so that the nav elements appear to be clickable via the cursor when the cursor is over them. Yeah. So that would be the cursor right here. Cursor becomes a pointer. Now, a fun fact is that you can actually add this property, cursor pointer, to the regular selector. The selector that would have been just dot nav element. Now I'm gonna have you do a little thinking here. Pause the video and consider why you can add cursor pointer to the regular element and it will still work rather than just adding it to the pseudo selector. Okay, pause it now. Great. Okay, you probably didn't pause it, but you know what? That's okay. The reason why this actually occurs is because when we place our cursor over the regular element, the pointer can appear without the hover effect even being without even occurring. The hover effect adds other visuals that previously may not have been seen, such as the underline. But when you move your cursor over the object, no matter what, it will turn into a pointer if it was the nav element alone or if it was nav element hover. So you could, there really is never one answer. You could go any direction for most of these problems. But okay, enough with that. We're still on step 2. Let's check how it turns out. Awesome, sweet. It's now a pointer. But you know what? I don't think we're done with step 2 because, like we said, this is super long. But oh, right. Deep think. Why do we ask you to add the pseudo class to nav element instead of another class? Why does this specific pseudo selector work alone? Why don't we need to include either float left or float right? Let's take a look at that reference point right now. What I'm talking about here is this class. We have a thing called float left and then nav element, right? So what actually is happening here is that the float left and nav element are actually individual classes. They're separate. They're separated by space. That's why when we create class selectors, or in any selector really, we use hyphens or dashes. If we're going to create a longer selector. So if you wanted to select any part of this, you could have done float left, and you could have done nav element. It really doesn't matter in this case, in this scenario. But they have their own properties. Float left, you can find it in the CSS file down there and see what it does on its own. But so both of these classes are going to be applied to this div. And it's very helpful to do this kind of styling when we get into more complex features of HTML and CSS. Great. So, moving on to the next part of step 2. Our button. It's unresponsive. Is it? Yeah. Oh no. How will the users know to do something? Alright, so let's add the entire missing pseudo selector to our CSS so the button will become responsive. Where is this? Add the entire appropriate button pseudo selector. Awesome. Cool. Where is it in our HTML? Because we have to, it's a parallel between the index and styles.css. It's a mirror. They have to be identical. We can't, we can't say dot button, since right here it says it's ID button. Dot button wouldn't work because that's a class, but hashtag button, that's the right one. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we want to have a reaction when we do something over this sign up to drive button, and that's probably a hover pseudo class. So we're gonna add it here. Let's see, what do we? We want to add some properties. I'd say. did we say what properties to add here? Slightly change some properties like color or opacity to add responsiveness to the selector and to distinguish it from its normal state. Keep design principles in mind. Interesting. Okay, I think the opacity right now is, let's find button down here. Button. There's no change to the opacity. So, oh wait, is that somewhere else? Yes, there's no opacity here. So you know what? I think what I'm gonna do is, for fun, just my style, I'm gonna say the opacity. Let's bring it down to 0.7. Yeah, that sounds nice. I like 7. Lucky number 7. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, look at that. Turns a little lighter. It's kind of too much. It's 0.8. And you really could do anything for this hover. You could. What happens if I do font like 20 pixels, 26, 28 pixels? Ugh, that's annoying. What? Oh, right, font size. Funny. See, still making mistakes. Look at that. Sweet. Now, it probably wouldn't make sense to do this on an actual page, but I'm just going to leave it there for fun, because this is just for my enjoyment. It's my character style, but it's kind of fast. I think that's what the next question. Oh, right. So change the cursor property so it seems it seems clickable, like we did for the nav bar. Easy peasy. Did this before already. Cursor, pointer, solid. Okay, but let's change. It's really fast. Yeah, I agree. Feel free to add a transition to slow it down, make it more pleasing to the eye. I agree. Cool. Transition. Let's call that let's say 0.2 seconds. Let's see. Oh yeah, much better. The font thing's kind of weird to be honest, but but some of you may notice, like, okay, transition, it goes slower, but then it's kind of ugly. As soon as I remove my cursor from the button, it changes really fast, and I want to make it. I want to make that slower too. Well, if the transition that we add to the pseudo class is the transition into the pseudo selector, this is like how long it's going to take in order to reach the full pseudo selector temporary state. So, what do you think would be? Where should we add a transition if we wanted to have the exit from the hover become also smooth? I'll give you a second. Okay, great. Let's try it. The answer is putting it in the actual element, because now we're going to go from the pseudo state to the regular element state. I guess I'll add it down here below this. This is step 4, but I'll do 0.2 seconds as well. Save that. Let's see what happens. Refresh the page. All right. Yeah, there we go. A lot smoother in both directions. Cool. But I don't think we're done still. So let's see. Yeah, it reacts. That's what it should look like before. After, the opacity is a bit down. Cool. Pseudo classes can be applied to any selector, not just an ID or class. It can be for divs, Ps, and even more. All right, we'll take a look at the form in our HTML code, and we're going to provide a pseudo selector to change the property when you click to type text in each input box. Add a single pseudo selector to your CSS that will work when you click on any of the text boxes in the form. Change the outline color to match the color of the normal state of the button. This is a minor touch that can go unnoticed, but actually adds a lot to the design. And this is what we want to achieve here. This question was really difficult, actually. It's kind of poorly phrased. We're looking at this right here, and we want to use one selector for the actual pseudo state. And as you can see, there's an ID called invite here, a name here. This one has a class called login. So we couldn't say, if we just want one, we can't just say a name, because name isn't going to cover the classes. And if we use invite, same thing, it's not going to cover classes. And if we use login, no invite or name. So in type text, you can actually play around with this. I would recommend looking up in W3 school or something like that what this means, but it's essentially saying like, oh, I'm going to type text into this input box. You can change the password, and then the input would become like a password kind of style. I'll show you right here. Now it's like dots. It's cool stuff. Many options. And then as you can see, there's something called placeholder, and that's what, like, you can see the placeholder is name, email, password, confirm password. This is the stuff that's going to be in the input box before anyone types anything in. Cool. So what we're actually looking for, since the hint was that you can use any kind of selector in this case, and what we're actually going to be doing is looking at the tag, and the tag is the input tag. So step 2 adds the input boxes below here, and that would be input. We don't need a hashtag, we don't need a dot, it's not an ID, it's not a class, it's just a tag, and that's how we select tags in general. And we're asking to outline color property. Right, we said outline color to match the color of the normal state of the button. Okay, so scroll down to the color of the button. The background color is this, so I'll go here, select this, and do focus, because that's the style we want. Like when it's focused in on that input box, that's the kind of pseudo selector that we use, or pseudo class we use for input boxes. We want the outline color to be this. So let's see what happens. Sick. All right, much better. You can see the outline color is now changed. Now, fun fact is actually you don't even need focus, because if you had noticed before, I'll take that out. We already have this outline color here, so there's a default option already for input box. Oh, don't look at that. Okay, there's already a default option. It's this. This is the default. So because there's a default in the normal state of the element, we can just change input. We don't need focus. Input, outline color. Look, and it's changed because that was the default state. Now, what would you use focus for then? Input focus. Maybe I'll change the background color, and I want that to be that funky colors. Whoops. So that, and so now when we focus in, you see that the background color now changes because that was the focus property. That was the focus property. I mean, you could add the background color immediately to input as well, but then you wouldn't get, it would just stay that way. It wouldn't, when you focus, it's not changing. It's not a temporary state. So I'm just going to move that onto this. Fresh. Awesome. This is what we wanted. Okay, going back. All right, does your form look like this when you type text? It does look like this. Great. Step 2, done. Wow, that took a while. Okay, so let's do step 3. Let's go. Up for a challenge? I think we are. Okay, in the HTML file, add the appropriate link tag to the entire phrase, check your status here. And so that when the user clicks this phrase, it will direct the user to some other page. Choose whatever page you would like. Okay. Let's do this. It's a quite a challenge. The first step then is to add the link. Okay, so let's add the link to check your status. Here it is, step 3, check your status. That would mean that would be in between the text of an A tag, href. Fun, I'm gonna do. Let's see, what website? You know what? I'm using my favorite website. WDD.io. Oh, it's not .io. It's a pretty sick website. And then close that tab right there. Cool. Let's see what happens. Sweet. Check your status. There. It's a link now. And yeah, that kind of that thing works. Alright, what's next? Give that tag an ID. We're going to give it an ID. Okay, so within the tag, within the opening tag, I'm going to give it an ID. Any ID really works. I'm going to call it WDD ID. Cool. Save that. Alright, in the CSS file, select this specific tag and give it some cool properties in its normal state. Okay, done with step 3. We're going to select it now. We use an ID, which means hashtag WDD. Yeah. And we're going to change the properties of its normal state. You know what? I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to change the color of the font to also be not the background color, but the font of the button. And yeah, that's it right there. Cool. It's underlined, but you know, I don't want the underline to be there now. I want it to happen when we have a pseudo state. So text decoration, none. Cool. Right, now there's no text decoration. All right, cool. That seems good enough for me right now. Give some colors in normal state. Now add a pseudo selector and change some properties for when your cursor is over the text, so you can easily recognize that it can be clicked. Okay. Yeah, because right now it's not super obvious. I mean, the cursor turns to a pointer, but this is when I want to have the text decoration to be underlined. That's just my personal preference. And this is going to be hover. Kind of makes sense. Text decoration, underline. Now that'll work. And you know what? I'm going to play around with the color a little bit here. I'm going to visit a cool website I like to use, Coolers. Like that. Search generator. It's free. So let's sidestep here. Oh no, it's loading slow. But just gonna add this in. Comes up with some cool colors. All right. All right. I'm gonna add bittersweet. Why not? Seems kind of cool. Color of the font. This is wacky. It's a wacky color. Look at that. Uh-oh. That's not right. Ah, this is why. Didn't add the pseudo class. Check your status. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, sweet. Okay. Next, add a pseudo selector for when you're clicking down on the link. That would be the pseudo class active. Yes. WDD active. Let's see, what do we want? Maybe we'll change the color again. Let's pick another color from this thing. Maybe something similar to bittersweet, so that it's a little different. Let's see what I want. Maybe I'll make it a little darker. So be like, oh yeah, I'm clicking down. This is what it's asking for when you're clicking down the link. Cool. So I'm gonna add dark coral. Honestly, these are some pretty nice colors. I might save this active. The color will be that. Refresh. Alright, there's that. And yeah, when I click down, oh shoot. Uh-oh. The file was not found. What is this? Alright, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna go to the website. I'm gonna use Coolers. I'm gonna use this because I want to save it. Let's see if that works. Sweet, that works. Let's see why didn't WDD Fall? Whoops. Oh wow, this is a mess now. I'm sorry. WDD.io. Okay, we'll have to fix that. But yeah, so the link now works, and what we need to do now is add a pseudo selector for when the link has already been clicked. We want to differentiate it. And that would be visited. The link has been visited. Color. That's not the color I want. Back to Coolers, and you know what? Let's gray it out. Laurel, even though it says laurel green, looks kind of gray to me. And visited. We want to know it's been visited, right? And well, okay, so that's because new income window. If we put it in here, no. We take this put it in here. The reason why it's like this already is because we've already visited the site, so an incognito window will show us like an incognito version. It doesn't know that we visited already. So here, this is hover, this is active. Now we visited the site, and yeah, cool. So that works, and we know that the visited works because it's grayed out. Awesome. Wow, what a challenge. Okay, we did it. Whew. That was stressful. Okay, now we're going to do some more CSS and fun extras. This is a time for more creativity. So let's add some border properties to button and form. Border properties, button and form. Button and the form. All right, now looking at it, I could use some rounding. Let's go down to this. The form, add some properties. Border radius, let's say 20 pixels. And then for design purposes, let's do the same for the button. Border radius 20 pixels. All right, rounded. Kind of too rounded for my taste, actually. 10 pixels. That's better. So a little more conspicuous. And maybe I'll add a border to the form. 1 pixel solid. And then we'll do, well, let's see what happens when we do the bright colors. It's kind of fun. Cool. That looks terrible. That looks really bad. Let's add the button color. That'll be fun. Maybe increase the size of the border. Now you can find like the other. There's many parameters that you could use for this attribute. So for this property. Sorry, many attributes you can use for this property. You can look it up and have some fun with that with your own CSS files. That's better. I mean, it's not great, but it's better. We're keeping a simpler color scheme. I like that. Cool. So we did that. Cool. Profile seems really tight. Oh yeah, it does seem really tight. It's cool. It's really cool. That's what it looks like. But I think the meaning there is that we probably want to add some more spacing. And you could use margin or padding in this case, but actually no, you would use padding. Think about why. Pause the video. All right, thank you for those who paused the video. Use padding because this right here is our border. Let's go to profile. We have a border that's 2 pixels solid. All right, this is the border. If we want to add padding, we're going to add space between the items. We're going to add space in the actual content, between the content and the border. Margin would increase the space between like these 2 profiles and other objects. So let's add a little bit of let's add some padding to this. Let's see, how much padding do we want to use? Maybe keeping the screen writing profile. Yeah, okay. Profiles, add spacing, padding, 24 pixels. I chose 24 just because it seems that we're trying to keep a consistent theme. 24, 12, 24, 18, so it's 6. So this subconscious thing. There we go. Cool. Look at that padding. It looks much better now. Sweet. What else is there? Use a different property to create better spacing for the title. All right. So in this case, we want spacing, but we want to use margin. Now, if you want to use the inspector to see something really cool, I don't know. Let's scroll down to profile, which is what we're on, or any of the profiles really cool. Look at this one. But you can see how it's spaced. There's no margin. We have a border of 2 pixels. It's highlighted right there. Padding is now 24 pixels, which is what we added, and that's between the content, which is the text and the picture, and the content itself is this, 150 by 300 pixels. So this is a really great visualization method to see if if your code is working in terms of that. We're going to add some more spacing for our rides. So that's the title here. Spacing property with different, let's just do margin, and we'll do margin bottom. Yeah, margin bottom, and we'll do 24 pixels as well, because we only need to separate the bottom, really. Yeah, like that. And you know, I did 24 pixels here, but you could really, there are many options to pursue in terms of how you use this property. There, you can see the attributes you can have. You can separate the attributes to be 24 pixels, 24 pixels, 24 pixels, 24 pixels, and this is going clockwise. Top, right, bottom, left. If you were to do just 2 of them, that also works. This is going to be for top and bottom right here. This is top and bottom, and this is for right and left. So those are little quick shortcuts, but we wanted 24 all around, so this is probably the easiest way to do so. Great. I'll close that. This looks lovely. Now we're going to add a pseudo selector to create a response when our cursor goes over gallery items under our rides. So we want a response from these. No, it's time to be creative. I think I'm going to use a hover option, and that'll change the border color. And yeah, let's try that. Cool. And so we're going to use the class profile here. We're going to do it for hover profiles. Profile. And add hover. Yeah, cool. Profile, hover, and do border. No, border color. Yeah. Change the border color to the color of the button again. Look at that. That's pretty sick. I like it. It would seem clickable. Or, you know, it's a nice effect. If you want, try and create specific responses for each gallery item. I'll do that. Let's say for Tesla. Yeah, ID Tesla. I like that. Let's do something different for that. Hover, and we'll do is we're gonna increase the border to be 4 pixels dotted, dotted, and let's change the color to this, because I want to try this because I really like the color. This is the color we'll use. And see, we already set the hover property for all the profiles to be the certain color that we wanted, but we can actually update that because what CSS does is it's going to pick the most specific property and the most specific selector. So what this should do is some fun stuff. Yeah, oh, that's great. I love it. You know, it's affecting the other ones, unfortunately, but that's really because of the code for how it was set up, which we'll get into later in this class, how to code like this is what we're doing probably next week in your hands-on in terms of the positioning. But look at that. Oh, that's so great. You see, it was updated because this is going to override the profile, because this is more general and this is more specific. Cool. End of step 4. End of hands-on. I think we have a really beautiful page here. You have some great resources. Also, highly recommend this practice game down here, made by @FlukeOut. It's a great way to work with your selectors. It's a fun game, and yeah, great job. Hopefully this helped out. I'd like to know though, was this too fast? Was this too slow? Let me know in class via email, on Piazza, in my DMs. You name it, I'll respond. Hopefully you like this. Yeah, let me know if this was too fast, if this was too slow, or if this helped at all. Great. Wow, this is awkward. I really don't know how to end this. I guess I'll see some of you in class. Alrighty.